How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to my channel. In this week's video, I'm going to be making a cute zombie couple. And yes, this was supposed to come out during Pride Month. And yes, I think it's probably going to be August by the time this actually gets uploaded. But you know what? Real ones are gay year-round, so who cares? It's never a bad time to celebrate love. But let's hop right into it.
So to get started, I knew that I wanted to use this Purrsephone doll as one of the girlfriends in this project because she's missing a leg and has this gray skin tone. I thought she'd be a good choice to make a zombie character. However, I didn't know who I wanted to use to be her girlfriend. I knew I wanted to use this Wild Hearts crew body because compared to a Monster High doll, it makes her look kind of like buff and muscular in comparison, and so I wanted that contrast in their body types. But I need to figure out what face mold would be like a good fit to make a cute couple, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I removed all of their heads. I just took all their heads off and held them up to see which would look most appropriate on this body. Ultimately, I decided that Frankie would be the best choice in terms of compatibility with the body, as well as looking cute next to Purrsephone. And they also have this boon of having this, like, green skin tone, which I also think lends itself very well to a zombie character. After I made my decision, I went about the steps of preparing the head by scraping out the inside with a screwdriver to get out all the hair plugs, and cutting open a fun slit in the back to pull out all the gross little chunks. While I was lint rolling my silicone mat, her head suddenly flies in a frame, and I have no idea why that happened. Once my workstation is all cleaned up, I go ahead and remove her face with 100% acetone. After her head is all prepped, I immediately set it aside and begin working on her body instead. So for this gal, I wanted her to be like a genetically engineered zombie. You know what I mean? Like, in the Resident Evil movies where they have like the zombies that are turned because they got bit, and then they also have some freaky dudes that they made in a lab. I wanted her to be a freaky dude that they made in a lab. So here I'm using some hot glue to create some like weird, gross skin texture, and then bedding some jewelry wire into that to look like she has like wires and stuff running through her body. I found that hot glue is actually really useful for doing little modifications like this because you can get really cool textures, and it's just really simple. It dries quick. It's way less effort than, pulling out some clay and sculpting something, though obviously it doesn't work for everything, but I found for this it worked fantastic. I think it's really funny that now I'm 2 for 2 on making couples on this channel, where one of them is like a government experiment. I I don't know why that is a fascination to me, but it just is. I think you know how they do that joke where like, oh, you walk up to like a couple and you're like, oh, which one wears the pants in the family? But instead it's like, so which one of you was made in a lab? I think that's a more important question. Once I'm done with all of her hot glue mods, I'm going through and I'm sanding down the remaining plastic on her body to get it prepped for some paint, because I'm sure you could tell she's not currently green, but she needs to be. Oh boy, so this is actually the part of the project that brought this whole video to a screeching halt. It took a lot of layers to get her body even close to being right. The paint on her legs just kept like bubbling and falling off. I had an absolutely miserable time. I didn't know how hard it was going to be in this clip, but as you could see, this is about as good as I could get it. This is like days of work. Eventually, I just had to give up. and go in with the sort of secondary color, which is this sort of mauve-y, like maroonish color to sort of help fill in the gaps and make this little mutated zombie arm look like a little mutated zombie arm. I decided to be pretty liberal with this stuff. As you can see, I really watered down this color to help get this like kind of splotchy look, and I applied it to all of her joints to help sort of mask where the paint was chipping, because you know, you wouldn't really be able to tell what's paint chipping and what's this little like mottled splotchy color moment, you know what I mean? And that is actually an art tip. If ever you are trying to sort of like cover up a mistake or camouflage it rather, doing something that has like a busier texture will sort of help make your eye not focus so hard on, you know, the things that you don't want people to focus on. And I know technically these spots around her like hips or whatever will be covered by her clothes, because spoilers, I'm planning on putting clothes on her. It just bothered me too much to leave it how it was. I couldn't stop looking at it, and you know what? Sometimes you just gotta do things for you, you know? For the little wires that are running through her body, I decided that purple would look cute with the overall color scheme. I also decided to paint her nails purple because I thought that would be a cute addition that would give an insight into her personality or whatever. Once I was done futzing with her body, I was finally able to get to the more simple and enjoyable part of the process for me, which is her face up. You know, I've painted a ton of eyeballs and eyebrows and lips at this point. I don't have to think too hard about it, and it's kind of a relief, especially when you spent days fighting with getting her body looking right. But you know, I think her face came out cute. I just wanted to keep it cute and simple, give her a little eyeliner. I wanted to keep her irises really dark because I just think that's a cute look, and I don't have that many dolls with very dark irises, so I just went with the dark purple to sort of match with the wires and keep that color scheme going. I love how I was just talking a big game about how easy it is to do face ups or whatever. I've done it a million times. It's so easy. But the reality is I struggled with her lips so much. Like I skip past a whole chunk of footage, and then like I go back and futz with them more later because I really wanted her to look happy. You know, these characters are supposed to be in love and having a good time, and I'm kind of fighting the face mold a little bit on that, you know, but it's easier to make people look sad. I don't know what to tell you. Bro, happy in this economy? Anyway, speaking of this economy, I'm going to take a moment while I'm blushing her face to say that if you watched this far and you liked this video, consider liking it. It really helps me out a lot. If you want to see more art things from me, consider subscribing. I do stuff like this all the time, and it's a huge support when you watch my videos. Share them with people if you want too. Do you know people that like dolls? Tell them that I do it, and make sure they watch my videos about it. Whenever I'm doing my calls to action, I always feel like a desperate businessman from the 80s who's like sweating, running into a board meeting, just like, all right, guys. This is my next big plan, okay? We're gonna make $1 bajillion. I'm gonna get this company out of the hole, I swear, dude. I'm just a sweaty guy in like a disheveled tie and a partially unbuttoned shirt, just like at the end of my rope. If any of you guys watching are a sweaty, disheveled businessman from the 80s, I'm so sorry for making fun of your culture. Judging by my analytics, I don't think that's true. You are predominantly women, and I love that for us, but oh man, I don't know why I'm so tickled. But anyway, I'm doing her. I'm kind of I decided not to get her sorry. I decided not to give her eyebrows because at this point I didn't know what color hair I wanted to give her. And so I'm just kind of adding extra shading to the like crease of her eye to sort of give that vibe, you know. I just think that it's normal for dead people not to have eyebrows, you know. It's kind of giving Exorcist a little bit, and I thought it was slay. So earlier I had mentioned that this is my second time making a couple where one half of them is like a genetically engineered government experiment. If you guys haven't seen my Cyber Soldier video, I'm gonna leave the link to that in the description because I think you should watch it. It's a fun video. But anyway, I don't think there's any reason why these couples can exist in the same universe, you know? I feel like a government that's gonna be making little cyber soldiers is probably would be down to make little zombie experiments too, you know, just doing all the horrible mad science. Why not? You know, maybe this girl and my cyber soldier like escaped their facility at the same time and they both join that like resistance group and they fight and fall in love with their respective partners while trying to take down this, you know, tyrannical government thing, you know. Could be fun. I also really need to start naming my characters because if I want to do things like this, it's so much harder to be like my cyber soldier and his girlfriend and her and her girlfriend. Like, these people need names. So if you guys have thoughts and feelings about names, I'll leave those in the comments below. I'm curious about your suggestions. Once I'm done with the chalk pastels, I go in with some white acrylic paint to give her catch lights as well as her little open mouth smile. Because I blushed her whole body, I go in with several very watered down layers of liquid sealant over her entire body to help keep everything in place. I use matte Mod Podge for this, but you could use whatever works for you. Once I'm done with the matte sealant, I go in with some gloss Mod Podge to help make the sort of like more mutated bits of her body have this glossy sheen because I thought I'd make him look a little bit more gnarly, you know, and really help that texture stand out. After I finished sealing up our genetically engineered girly, I decided to put her aside and start working on her girlfriend. So I just go through all the usual steps to get her base prepped. Though because I don't want this character to have cat ears, I have to take an extra step and remove her original ears. Poor girly. I don't think I've ever kept one of these cat girls as is. Y'all, the hair in this girl's head was particularly nasty. After that's all cleared out, I remove her face with 100% acetone and once again set it aside and start working on her body. Before I go in with any body modifications, I remove the stripes on her arms and legs using the same acetone I used on her face. So for her missing leg, I decided to just make it look like her leg was ripped off. So I'm shoving a toothpick into the sort of open hole at the bottom of her thigh to sort of create a base armature to build some hot glue gore around. Once I'm pretty happy with how that looks, I trim off the toothpick at the end and just sort of create this stringy taper to the bottom. As always, if you're gonna touch hot glue, be really careful and probably make sure your fingers are wet to help cool it in the process. For the rest of her body, I'm using hot glue to create her little wounds. So I have this sort of like split open dangly innards bit as well as these like bite marks that look, you know, sort of like tore up flesh, I guess. To paint these wounds, I start out with a really dark red to sort of fill in all of the sort of indents and crevices in the hot glue, and then I go over that with a brighter red to help make it pop a little bit. I go ahead and add some red to her hands as well to make it look like she's been getting up to some messy business, you know? Once that's dry, I go over it with some glossy Mod Podge to help make it look a little wet. Once the Mod Podge was dry, I was able to go in and start working on her face up. So for her look, I wanted to do something a little bit more goth because I had this like opposites attract thing in my mind for these two because that's a really fun trope, I guess. And I also decided to only give her one eyeball because any opportunity to make something asymmetrical and make my life easier, I am going to take. And, you know, zombies don't need both eyes. She can see just fine with one. I decided to go with red for her remaining iris because this dark gray skin tone is a little bit tricky to work with, so I decided to really limit my color palette to just blacks, whites, and reds. And I feel like for a goth character that works really well anyway, so I just go, what? Anyways, for her mouth, I kind of gave her a little bit of a messy look because she does eat flesh a little bit, you know. So I've been thinking about it. You know, it's taken me a couple days to film this voiceover, and in that time, I've had some shower thoughts about these characters and this world, right? And so originally my thought was like, okay, so she's like a turned zombie and the other girlie is a engineered zombie, and then like when our engineered girl escapes, she sort of meets this gal out in the wild, you know, and I guess is a world where zombies have some sort of sapience. But think about some more. If I'm combining this universe with that of the sort of cyber soldier thing, what I'm thinking is maybe like this girl was a part of the resistance group, and maybe she was like attacked by a horde of zombies while they were on a mission or whatever, but they had like a limited supply of like antidote for like the zombie virus, so they're able to like cure the zombification process, like kinda like her shit still got rocked, she got like torn apart, but they were able to like make it so that she was still like sapient and conscious or whatever. I just think it'd be interesting, and if I had known while I was making these dolls that I wanted to like combine these worlds, you know, I probably would have given her a cybernetic eye like the other girlie had, and maybe like a cool robo leg. Maybe they're working on it, maybe they're gonna like get some for her, but she hasn't in this iteration, she hasn't gotten those yet. And I feel like when she does get her little cybernetic enhancements, she'll be able to go back to being on the front lines and like tearing dudes apart or whatever, because I think that's fun. I think it's fun when a character still kinda eats people. You know, it's like a little bit monstrous. I just think it's neat. I went ahead and gave her white eyebrows because I'm planning on giving her white hair later. And after that, I could go in with the chalk pastels to start blushing her face. One of the downsides to not working with Mr. Super Clear is that when working on darker skin tones like this, I can't really build up any lighter tones for highlights or anything in the blushing process. And that's kind of a bummer because I feel like that would look really good for this face up. But, you know, there are pros and cons to using the method that I do. I'm still pretty satisfied with the look I am able to get by going in with sort of darker grays and reds around the perimeter of her face just to add a little bit more dimension. Since I already blushed it all earlier in this video and I don't have anything else to plug at the moment, I'm just gonna skip past the rest of this. I hope you guys don't mind. After that, I could add her catchlight and then seal her face in with several very watered down layers of liquid sealant. Once again, I'm using matte Mod Podge for this. You could use whatever you want. Obviously not whatever you want. I mean, it has to be a sealant, but you do you. Now that both girlfriends have their bodies and faces complete, I can see what they look like next to each other, and I think they're gonna be really cute. But they need some clothes. For this project, I decided to modify some existing clothes I already had in my stock because you know I love doing that shit, okay? I'm lazy and I have so much doll clothes. So this is actually a pair of kin shorts that I cut off and then removed the Velcro from so I could tailor it to fit her waist better. And her top is actually that hideous top that the doll that I used for my mermaid sculpture was wearing that I talk so much shit about, but honestly I think it's really fitting and cute for this character. I try to be a good girl and not use any hot glue on the clothes, so I'm using tacky glue here instead. This barely worked. It did not want to stick and kept soaking into the fabric, and it took way longer than it needed to, so just use hot glue, who cares? Or so if you really want to be good about it, but you know, sometimes good enough is good enough. For her top, I decided to cut off one of the arms so that her like cool mutated arm could show because I put all that effort into it. And for our goth girl, I decided to modify this shadow high dress because honestly, it is just so cute and so perfect. And I found that when I remove the Velcro, it makes it like the perfect size, you know, like that's the exact amount of fabric that needs to be cut off for this dress to fit her perfectly. I resealed the back with hot glue because I couldn't get the other glue to work on it. I'm so sorry. But after that's done, I modify it even further by cutting a hole where her little innards are kind of spilling out. That way you could, you know, see a little bit of the work that I did there. I used an X-Acto knife to further distress both of their outfits because it's supposed to have a post-apocalyptic vibe. And I am just so tickled by the idea of our genetically engineered girly like escaping her government facility and being able to pick out her own clothes for the first time. And like the first thing she picks out is this like really fun kind of colorful outfit, like maybe in like an abandoned mall somewhere. She's like, this is cute, and puts it on. I don't know, I just think it's really fun. For other girly, it was a lot more difficult to distress her outfit, so I just used the scissors and cut a couple little chunks out of it. For our final step, I need to add some dirt and blood and grime. So to do that, I'm just sort of wetting the clothes and adding some watered down red paint, some black paint, and just making it look a little distressed and dirty. This is typically a much easier process to do with the clothes off of the doll, but for some reason I did it this way. It's not smart. I don't know why I did it like this, but it still worked. On the black dress, I just add some red paint to be blood. It didn't really need much else. Once the base of their outfits was mostly done, I decided to start adding their hair. So for our goth girly, I decided to go in with this sort of like red maroon for the underside of her hair. And then on top of that, I add this sort of off-white so that when I give her a sort of shaggy kind of haircut later, you'll be able to see like the layers, you know? For other girl, I thought this sort of pale baby pink would look good with her color scheme. I went ahead and cut their hair off camera. I decided to give this girly a sort of pixie cut, and I had never done that before. And then for other girl, I did this sort of like scene girl shag mullet kind of deal. So for our goth girly, I purchased this Barbie Fashionistas wheelchair, and I'm going to give it a little bit of an apocalypse makeover. I started out by taking some black foam and cutting out a piece to fit the back of the wheelchair because I did not want this wheelchair to still be Barbie branded. I thought about adding a new logo or insignia onto the back, but I couldn't really come up with anything, so maybe in later designs I'll throw that in there at some point. I've actually had this spike collar necklace in my scrap materials for literally like 4 years after my dog destroyed it, and I was like, I know I'm gonna use these studs for something someday, and guess what? That day is today. I went ahead and I cut them out, and I'm going to be super gluing them onto like the little center nut bit of the wheels. The second one gave me a little bit of trouble because I had to balance it on a pair of scissors, and I was very scared when I dropped it, but I just added a little bit more glue and stuck it right back on there. After those were nice and adhered, I took this makeup sponge and I'm just like pulling chunks out of it to get this uneven texture. And then I used it to dab brown and black paint all over the entire wheelchair to give it that sort of like rusted old look, like it's been found in like an abandoned hospital or something that's been hanging out for years. I also got in there with my hands to sort of rub the paint around as well as rub it off of certain spots to make it look a little bit more random and natural, I guess. Then I went in with some red paint and add a little bit of a blood splatter effect, you know, because she's kind of a little bit gross and also covered in blood, so I feel like her wheelchair should be too. And after I got this bad boy nice and grimy, they were complete. And here are the final results. I am obsessed with them. If I'm being so very honest, I think they are so cute. I think they look so good together. They are so fun to pose, and like I love making couples. That's like my favorite thing to do as a doll customizer, because it's so fun to make it look like they're interacting with each other, and it just like opens up a whole world of possibility for posing and pictures and all of that. I already have future projects planned where I'm like, maybe I should take an existing doll and make a partner for them just so I can pose them together. But anyways, that's enough gushing from me. Let me know how you feel about them in the comments below, but mostly if you're nice to me, please be nice to me. I will cry. Anyways, that's it for this video. I hope to see y'all next time. Love you. Bye!